Good evening, everyone, and welcome to part 5. Can't believe it's 5 already. Welcome to part 5 of our Candid conversations. Thank you so much for your questions. They're coming in thick and fast. Thank you so much for sharing this content across your social media. I want to encourage you to continue to do so. I want to encourage you to continue to engage with us in these candid conversations. Invite your friends into these candid conversations, and let's see how far and how wide we can spread these candid conversations to people around us. I want to try and answer the question, where is God when we cry? Is God absent in himself from the suffering that we see around us? There's one thing that I know, it's this: there is no easy way to travel a road of what feels like divine silence. Those times when no matter how much you reach up to God, how many times you seem to pray, how many times you seek to gain understanding of where you may find yourself in life, as a non-believer and as a believer trying to seek God's will, that you find that there's just no response. Like there's literally a lead ceiling over your head. There is no response to lift your failing human spirit. We're sometimes left with the feeling that God is just busy on more important issues. Like God's just got a full plate and, he's just got other things to deal with. And then sometimes I wonder to myself, is God just staying silent long enough for us to distill in the midst of our pressure, in the midst of the hardships we go through? Is God staying long enough for us to distill in that moment what it is that we're truly seeking from him, what it is that we're truly seeking to know? In the ancient Hebrew text, the book of Psalms is truly the book of life. The book of Psalms is truly the book of everyday struggle. A psalm is a song. And in life, everything we seek to understand, everything we seek to express, everything we seek to say, we put into song. We sing them. Songs sing our heart. They sing our pain. They sing our joy. They sing joy and pain, sunshine and rain. Songs do that. And Psalms is that book of song, that book of Psalms. There's one Psalm in particular, Psalm 88. And I call Psalms 88 the suicide Psalm. And I don't say that flippantly. I don't say that with no, excuse me, I don't say that with no disregard to the impact of using those words. Because when you read Psalm 88 and you read the words of the person who is reciting this psalm, who has penned this psalm, you are listening to the words of somebody who is at their wit's end, and life as they know it just holds no meaning for him. He's literally come to the end of his tether. His name is Heman, and Heman is a Korahite. The Korahites were a guild of writers. They were a guild of writers who wrote songs for worship at the Jerusalem temple. And he was a leader of worship at the Jerusalem temple. Not only is he a writer of songs for temple worship, he is called the king's seer. That means he's the king's advisor. He's the king's wise man. His name means faithful. So it's just, the picture is being presented of him is not that he is somebody who has no faith and somebody who is searching blindly in the darkness of life for some light from heaven to shine on his soul. He is somebody deeply embedded and deeply entrenched in the life of God, the worship of God, the thought of God, the extolling of the idea of God, and yet he sounds at his wit's end. Listen to some of his song of despair in Psalms 88 in verse 4. He says, I am like those who have no help. In verse 6, he turns to God and he says, you have put me in the lowest pit, in the darkest depths. He says to God in verse 15, I suffer your terrors. I am desperate. In verse 18, he says, you have caused friends and neighbors to shun me. The darkness is my closest friend. You know, it says this to me. It says that the Psalms are acutely aware that we are never exempt from times of isolation, times of doubt, times of pressure, times of despair. Somebody wrote in the question last week, you know, why can't we just get a miss? As people who believe in God, why can't we just get a miss on pain? Because life isn't that way. Life isn't that way. And God isn't going to give us the advantage of skipping. He's not going to give us the advantage of skipping. We're never exempt from times of isolation, of doubt and despair. It says this also, that although we may have lives on the outside, like Heman, he's a leader, he's close to the throne, he's at the heart of government, he's at the heart of the religious, political, and the national heart of the nation. Although you may have lives that have public veneer, that have public shine, and that have public accolades, that does not exempt you from times of personal and private struggle, personal and private despair, personal and private self-doubt. The Psalms make it clear that the struggle is real. But the Psalms also make it clear that the struggle has meaning. The Psalms make it clear that we can struggle towards purpose. We can struggle towards meaning. This psalm, or this type of psalm, this, as it were, genre of psalm, is called the Lament Psalms. And it was in the Lament Psalms that the writers poured out their hearts to God. They started with the orientation that God is good and that God sits on his throne. But then they moved to the disorientation of, you know, I can't understand why I'm suffering all these pressures. I can't understand why evil men come against me. I can't understand why I continue to see evil win when I'm trying to do good. I'm trying to live this good life, but all around me is this pressure. But then it moves back to the reorientation of seeing how God steps into that space of being God and extending his righteous arm and extending back equity. But not so with Psalms 88. Oh. Not so with Psalms 88. The Lament Psalms were the places that they sought to find answers for their confusion, that they felt at God's absence. But not so with Psalms 88. There is no resolution. Instead, the Psalms just ends with no resolution and ends open-ended. It doesn't end with God being in control. It doesn't end with Heman coming back to that place of extolling God and remembering God's goodness again. It just ends with no conclusion, no word of resolution, no assurance, which makes the Psalms, it makes the Psalms almost essential for living. Why? Because the Psalms let us know that life is messy. A life of faith is messy. A life of faith is complicated. A life of faith and a life of love and a life of God has to take place within the reality of the evil that fights against it. A life of faith doesn't always end and they praise God happily ever after. It doesn't always end that way. But here's the point. Here is the point of beauty in this story. Although it doesn't end with resolution, it ends with him still talking to God. It ends with him still talking to God. The conversation is cut short, but the conversation is continuing. It's cut short for us because we're looking for the resolution, but the conversation isn't over yet. God and Heaven aren't done talking by any stretch of the imagination. Heaven will stay in there with God, and God will stay in there with Heaven. And Heaven will talk in there, and he will stay in there until, as it were, God gives him a new song. Until, as it were, God gives him a new song. And I think the lesson for us here is the same. We don't have seasons of doubt about the idea of God because we don't think he can come through. A person who has no real faith but has heard, ask the question, where is your God? Because they've constantly heard stories that God turned up. They constantly heard stories that God came through. But when they don't see it happen in the way they expect it to happen, they ask the question, well, then where is your God? Where is your God during human suffering? Believers ask, God, where are you? Not because they don't think God can do it, because they ask because they've got a track history of God doing it again and again and again and again and again. And they're wondering, well, God, why haven't you moved like you always have? Why haven't you come through like you always have? But like Heman, they have learned to stay in there, complain in there, write in there, sing in there, pray in there, shout in there, cuss in there. Yeah, I said that. God isn't insecure. Stay in there. Why? Because I'm coming to learn that sometimes you don't get to sing a new song until you get through singing all the old songs. I mentioned last week that I was blind, partially blind in my right eye. The partial blindness in my right eye came about because they found a tumor in my left kidney. And the creatinine levels built up so much that it hemorrhaged the right eye. So I permanently lost the sight in my right eye. Partial sight. It's gone. It's gone. It's gone. And they had to take the kidney, but I'm alive. You know, I went back to work. I went back to the public space of work. I went back to the public space of leadership. I went back to the public space of preaching all around the world. I went back into that public space, but privately, I went back into that space depressed. Not that I'd lost my kidney, depressed that my eye hadn't come back. That no matter what they did, every optometrist always said, well, it won't get worse, but it won't get better. And I went back privately depressed. Oh, I prayed in there like him, and I cried in there. I frustrated myself in there. And it was for months. No one knew. No one knew the depression I was feeling. No one knew what I was actually going through. But in the privacy of my heart, in the privacy of my mind, the struggle for me was real. And it didn't feel like I was struggling towards purpose, towards meaning. I remember one day in the midst of it all, I heard God speak to me, like literally speaking to my spirit, speaking to my mind. He said, Eddie, how long did you know you were sick? I said, I didn't, because I didn't know that this thing was growing inside me. How long did you know the thing was growing inside you, Eddie? I said, oh, Father, I don't know. He said, and how did you find out? I said, well, I found out when the eye hemorrhaged and I lost the sight in the eye. And then God said, yes. And by becoming blind, you was able to see. And that sat in my spirit. That sat so deeply in my spirit. And I thought, yeah, that works for me. That works for me. The eye is still the same. But I always remember that by becoming blind, I was able to see. And because I was able to see, I was able to live. I was able to live. Where is God when we cry? God is right there in the midst. God doesn't absent himself away from our tears. He doesn't absent himself away from our struggle. I learned that with a new song comes a new perspective on singing it. It comes a new perspective on living. But more deeply, there comes a new reality on God and the place of God and how we navigate. And I'm hoping that you learn. I'm hoping that you learn that God is in the midst when we cry. God doesn't absent himself when we cry. He may not answer the prayer in the way you want that prayer answered, but he is never going to refuse to hear and answer that prayer. He's never going to distance himself away from your struggle. So what is my prayer? What is my prayer for you? My prayer is this: may you not only come to the realization that God is intentionally seeking to make himself known to you, but may that intentionality become manifest in your lived experience. Thanks for continuing to join us. Thanks for continuing to be with us in that space. I hope that that word made sense. I hope that it spoke into your spirit. There's a question here. And the question is, do you think God sometimes causes our pain? No. Although God knows that he's going to allow for situations, and we are going to have to travel the road of situations in which pain is going to take place. I don't think that God is intentionally causing us pain. I don't think that God is intentionally, as his children, I don't see him as that kind of parent. I've never experienced him as that kind of parent. I don't know of the parent who is going to make their child feel the type of debilitating pain that would make their child question the love of their parent. I know that as a parent, I will challenge my daughter. I will challenge my daughter and I will push my daughter. And because I see the potential in my daughter, and I will push my daughter beyond her comfort levels. And I'll push her into discomfort levels, but into the space that causes the type of pain that creates doubt about whether or not I love her, whether or not I care for her. I've never understood God to be that type of God. I know that we are living in a life in which pain happens. I know that we are living in a life in which we rub up against other human beings. We create decisions. We are the victims of other people's decisions. Sometimes we did not plant, we did not sow bad seed, but somehow we seem to be reaping somebody else's bitter harvest. And I know that life creates those type of spaces for us. I dare say it's happened to you. I know that it's happened to me on many, many occasions. But I've never seen God as the one who has been the one orchestrating pain. I know that God has been with me in the midst of my pain. I know that there are times when I've been in situations in life where I've wanted to pull myself out completely. And I know that God has come up alongside me and he said, no, you need to stay here longer. You need to learn deeper. You need to reach down deeper. I always believe that in times, those times of real deep growth and real deep struggle, that we grow down deeper in order to grow up stronger. And I believe that that's, Bible says that we come out as pure gold, we go into the fire and we come out as pure gold. And so, yeah, I've never experienced, I've never thought of God as a God who intentionally causes pain, although he's a God who knows that there are situations in my life that is going to bring me pain. And I've had a ton of them. ton of them that I've caused and through no fault of my own. But in both spaces, I've always known him to be present. I've never known him to absent himself away from my struggle. One of the things that we're really asking you all to do is to join with us in this journey of Candid Conversations. And if you have any more questions, please, I'm looking at you across Facebook, YouTube right here, and I'm looking at you across Facebook. Please, if you have any more questions on what you've heard tonight or anything that we've been covering over the few weeks, please put your questions. Put your questions in for us. Put it in the comment section, and we'll seek to answer your questions. One of the things that we want you to do is to partner with us in sharing these candid conversations, posting and sharing the links across your Facebook pages, sharing the links. If you follow Mount Pisgah on YouTube, then copy the link and stick the link in an email. Stick the link in a. Did I say stink the link? Did I just say stink the link? Stick the link. Place the link in an email and send it to 10 of your friends. Come on now, that isn't hard. Just put in 10 of your friends one simple message. I really think that you all are going to appreciate this message this week from Candid Conversations, and press send. So join with us, please. Join with us in this journey of sharing. Somebody said stink the link. So, why did you put stink? Please join with us in this space of sharing these candid conversations. Join with us in this space of having this space of articulation, a space of articulation in which we're discussing things that we've always discussed about God, but we're just trying to discuss them in ways that sit more authentically, sit more transparently, sit more honestly, sit in a space of where we don't have all the answers, but we know that from our lived experience, this is what we can tell you. We know that from what we've journeyed with, how we've come to know God, how God has come to reveal himself to us as a community. This is how, this is what we can share. And this is how we've come to know God. So let me see. I was watching for the last 10 minutes, but the screen kept freezing. Hi Petula. If you have watched for the last 10 minutes, as soon as this is finished, just go back and you'll be able to see it again. You will be able to see it again. And thank you for your willingness to share it anyway. We truly do appreciate. And as a Mount Pisgah community, we truly do appreciate you joining in these spaces. We will continue to have these conversations. You know that Pastor Bobby Bavell will be with you on Sunday. His conversations have been brilliant. I tune in every Monday. I am in Australia, so I am always a day ahead, but I'm able to tune in the morning time while he's doing it in the evening time and be a part of those conversations. Any advice for refreshing your relationship with God and your devotional life for those who grew up in the church especially? I think one of the things that you can do is have an honest space of conversation. What have I lost? Why did I lose it? What do I need to reclaim? And think about that from a personal space. What have I lost when it comes to God? Why did I actually lose it? Go back, answer yourself, write that question down. What did I lose? What did I lose? How did I lose it? What do I actually need to reclaim? And then just give yourself that space of how do you refresh your relationship? Go back and listen to the songs that used to inspire you the most. Serious. And then add new songs to it. There are so many brilliant podcasts out there, so many brilliant daily devotional podcasts that you can listen to. Add some of them onto your playlists. Find a space where you consciously have, it's your space of, I don't know if I want to call it a space of silence. It's your space of stillness. Find your space of stillness where you concentrate on thinking with no noise around you. Just thinking about your spiritual space. Literally just thinking. Allow your imagination and allow the Spirit of God to speak in to that space of thinking and imagination, and reimagine your life, re-engineer your life. What does that look like? What do I want it to look like? And whatever you see in your mind, write it down. Listen to me. Whatever you see in your mind, write it down. And then find the things that will empower that. Find the things that will empower that. Find that place of stillness. Go back and listen to the songs that used to inspire you. Find new songs to add to that. Update your playlist. If you follow podcasts, find people who are really speaking like brilliant. I am a lover of Timothy Keller. I love Timothy Keller. He's got such brilliant material. I'm a lover of Rob Bell. I love the way he approaches the word. I love the way he just speaks through the word into the culture and allows the word to come into the culture. There are so many other people. There's so many other people that you can listen to. So many brilliant speakers. Add them into your space. Add them into your space, and make consistent space for it each day. Make consistent space for it each day. People say, "Oh, I'm just so time poor." We're not time poor. We're value poor. That's what we are. We're not time poor as human beings. We make time for the things we place the most value on. Well, reinvent and re-understand and renew your sense of value for these things, and create that mental value for these things and chase those things. I honestly do believe that if you're a person who really wants to do that, you really want to do that because somewhere in your spirit, God is drawing you into that. God is drawing you into that. And if he's drawing you into that, he is going to make himself known. Remember, he said to Moses, I see them, I hear them, I know them, I have come down. Well, then make space for him. If it's in your heart, make space. Listen, we want to thank you. We want to thank you for joining us here at Mount Pisgah and here at Candid Conversations. We're going to be back. I'm going to be back next Thursday. Pastor Bobby's going to be back on Sunday. So look out for those Candid Conversations. And we'll see you soon.
Thank you for joining us this evening for Candid Conversation. If you love what you saw here tonight, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel as well as turn on your bell notifications so that way you know every time we go live. Have any questions? Be sure to click the link in our description box and let us know your thoughts. And remember, ain't no judgment on this side. Also, be sure to like, comment, and share us on all of your social media platforms so that way your friends and family can be a part of the community as well and stay in the know of everything here at Mount Pisgah. See you next time.